What would you do if the love of your life asked for an open marriage, and then everything went horribly wrong? Emily and I had been married for 10 years. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but whose is? We had a good life together, 2 kids, a nice home, and a comfortable routine. But as the years went on, that routine started to feel monotonous. We weren't as passionate as we used to be. Date nights turned into Netflix binges, and conversations became mostly about bills, kids, and work. One evening, out of nowhere, Emily dropped a bombshell. "I've been thinking," she said nervously. "Maybe we should try opening up our marriage." I froze. What? She explained that she'd been listening to podcasts and reading articles about couples who'd saved their marriages by embracing an open relationship. She said it could bring excitement back into our lives and help us reconnect by exploring other connections outside our marriage. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The idea of sharing my wife with someone else felt like a betrayal of everything we'd built together. But Emily was persistent. She promised this wasn't about wanting to leave me or loving me any less. It was about trying something new to rekindle our spark. I was hesitant, but I didn't want to seem closed-minded. Deep down, I was terrified that saying no would push her further away. Against my better judgment, I agreed, but with one condition: full transparency. If either of us started seeing someone, we'd tell each other everything. Emily seemed thrilled, almost too thrilled. "This will be good for us," she said, kissing me on the cheek. But as I watched her walk away, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. Got it. I'll continue with Part 2, The Shift, and wrap up the story in 4 parts, while ensuring it remains gripping and emotionally powerful. Let's dive in. At first, things didn't seem all that different. Emily and I continued our usual routines. We didn't talk much about the open marriage idea after our initial conversation, and I started to convince myself that maybe she wasn't going to pursue it after all. But then she started going out more. Girls' nights turned into weekend outings, and suddenly she had a gym membership she'd never mentioned before. I didn't want to seem insecure, so I didn't ask too many questions. But the nagging suspicion was always there. It wasn't long before Emily sat me down to share something. She said she had met someone, a man named Chris she'd met, at her gym. She insisted it was nothing serious, just a casual connection. "Remember, this is about us exploring," she said, her voice almost too cheerful. "I still love you, and you're my priority." Hearing those words gutted me. I nodded and forced a smile. But inside, I felt like my world was crumbling. I told myself I needed to try, so I started exploring too. I downloaded a couple of dating apps and went on a few dates. The women were nice enough, but it felt hollow. None of them compared to Emily. Meanwhile, Emily seemed to be thriving. She'd come home glowing, talking about her newfound energy and how this was exactly what we needed. The distance between us grew wider. We went from being partners to being strangers sharing a house. I kept hoping this phase would pass, that Emily would realize what we had was enough. But then, things took a turn for the worse. One night, Emily didn't come home. She claimed she'd fallen asleep at Chris's place after watching a movie. She said it so casually, like it wasn't a big deal. But it was a big deal, to me at least. That was the night I realized I was no longer her husband. I was just the guy she shared a mortgage and kids with while she lived her new life. The breaking point came about 3 months into the arrangement. I came across a text on Emily's phone that she'd accidentally left on the counter. It wasn't snooping. It popped up right in front of me. The message was from Chris. "I wish you didn't have to go back to him tonight. You belong here with me." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. This wasn't just casual for her. It was emotional. She had connected with him in a way she hadn't connected with me in years. When Emily walked into the room, I confronted her. I told her I'd seen the text and demanded to know the truth. She didn't deny it. Instead, she sat down, tears streaming down her face, and said something that shattered me completely. I didn't expect to feel this way, but I think I'm falling for him. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My worst fear had come true. The open marriage wasn't about exploration or reconnecting. It was about Emily finding someone else. I gave you everything, I said, my voice shaking. I agreed to this for you. And now you're telling me it was all just, so you could replace me? Emily sobbed, saying she didn't mean for this to happen, that she still loved me, but she was confused. I don't want to lose our family, she said. I don't know what I want anymore. That was it for me. I told her the arrangement was over. She needed to make a choice. Either she ended things with Chris and committed to fixing our marriage, or we were done. Emily chose Chris. She said she needed time to figure things out and thought separating would help. So she moved out, leaving me with the kids. For the first few weeks, I was a wreck. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The kids were confused and kept asking when Mommy was coming home. I didn't have the heart to tell them the truth. But then, something unexpected happened. About 2 months after Emily left, she showed up at the house looking disheveled and tearful. She said things with Chris had fallen apart. He wasn't the person she thought he was, and their perfect connection had crumbled under the weight of reality. I made a mistake, she said, sobbing. I threw away everything for nothing. Please give me another chance. For a moment, I felt a flicker of hope. But then, I remembered the months of pain, the lies, and how she'd chosen him over me. I can't do this anymore, Emily, I said. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. We finalized our divorce a few months later. Emily begged me to reconsider, but I knew I deserved better. I focused on rebuilding my life, being there for my kids, and rediscovering who I was outside of being her husband. Emily still regrets her decision. She's told me multiple times that losing me was the worst mistake of her life. But by then, it was too late. Now, when I look back, I see the open marriage for what it really was. A wake-up call. It forced me to face the truth about my marriage, about Emily, and about myself. And while it hurt like hell, it also set me free. Update. 6 months later. Hey everyone, it's been about 6 months since I posted my story about Emily and our failed open marriage. A lot has happened since then, and I thought I'd come back with an update for those who reached out with support or were curious about how things turned out. To start, I've finalized the divorce with Emily. It was hard, especially because we share 2 amazing kids, and I didn't want them to feel like their world was falling apart. We worked out a custody arrangement. She has them every other weekend, and I have them the rest of the time. It wasn't easy at first, but the kids are adjusting. They still ask questions sometimes, but I've tried to keep the explanations age-appropriate and focused on the fact that both their parents love them deeply. As for Emily, she's still struggling. She's apologized to me countless times since the divorce was finalized. She told me that she regrets everything, pushing for the open marriage, choosing Chris over our family, and hurting me in ways she can't take back. I believe her remorse is genuine. But as I told her during our last serious conversation, some things just can't be undone. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild. Chris, the guy she left me for, turns out he wasn't exactly the prince she thought he was. After the honeymoon phase of their relationship, he started pulling away. From what I've heard through mutual friends, he moved on pretty quickly once things got serious, leaving Emily heartbroken and alone. She even admitted to me that she feels like she threw away our marriage for nothing. While part of me feels bad for her, I can't let that overshadow everything she put me through. On a personal note, I've been working on myself. Therapy has been a huge help. It's given me a space to process everything and start healing. I've also started going to the gym regularly, which has been a great outlet for my emotions and has helped me feel better physically and mentally. My kids have been my biggest motivation. Every time I see them smile, I'm reminded that I'm doing this for them as much as for myself. I haven't started dating yet, and honestly, I'm not in a rush. I'm focusing on rebuilding my confidence and making sure I'm the best version of myself before I let someone else into my life. I've learned a lot from this whole experience, and one of the biggest lessons is that I deserve someone who values me and won't make me feel like I'm just an option. As for Emily, she's expressed interest in rebuilding what we had, but I've been very clear that it's not going to happen. I can forgive her for the sake of co-parenting and moving forward, but I'll never forget what she did to me. I deserve a fresh start, and so do my kids. Thanks to everyone who gave advice and shared their stories in the comments of my last post. It helped me realize I wasn't alone in going through something so painful. If there's one silver lining in all of this, it's that I've come out stronger and more self-aware than I ever thought possible.